It's been more than 2.5 years since the battle raging over the Ukrainian city of Mariupol was finished, where 3 months of that war's most brutal fighting left that city of more than 250,000 people in ruins. Official statistics, according to the then deputy mayor under Ukraine's government and the former city council, indicated that civilian casualties at the time were in the vicinity of 1,500. But those numbers, according to a 2023 report by Human Rights Watch, were closer to 9,000. There was no dispute, however, that the city was in shambles, with a landscape that resembled cities in Iraq or Libya or Afghanistan after U.S. wars against those countries. But unlike the cities destroyed by the U.S. military and its proxies, once the shooting stopped in Mariupol, as in other cities in the eastern part of Ukraine, a massive reconstruction effort was begun, and it's been bearing some fruit. Dan Kovalek is a law professor and international relations expert. He's been in Mariupol for the past few days, and we spoke with him on his way back home via Skype on Monday. Dan, Mariupol was pretty much a mess after the beginning of the special operation, according to the Russian side, the Russian invasion of Ukraine, according to Washington. It was one of the big battles, big city, occupied city, by humans, and a lot of fighting around them. It's the place where the steel plant that was well mentioned in the media here took place, the battle over that. And there's been a reconstruction effort going on there. It's characterized by the Western press as an attempt to bury war crimes. And what are you looking at?
Well, I mean, first of all, it's an incredible reconstruction effort. I believe that the Russians have put in about $5 billion to reconstruct old housing that could be reconstructed and to build a lot of new housing, new hospitals, new schools. Honestly, so I was in Mariupol in November of 2022. So that would have been several months after Mariupol was either liberated from Russia, if you're on that side of the fence, or taken over by Russia. But in any case, after the Russians were victorious in that city. And at that time, there was reconstruction happening, but it was early on, and the city was still largely showed the signs of war. A lot of buildings destroyed and in bad shape. But now, 2 years later, the city has been utterly transformed. You see brand new windows in most of the buildings. You see, again, a lot of new construction, thousands of housing units built for people. By the way, people had the choice to either stay in their old homes and have them reconstructed or move to these new, very nice housing units, which I visited. I also visited a brand new Center for the Arts for children, which is beautiful. I have a lot of footage just taken from the van we were driving, just going through Mariupol. And again, the city is gleaming with, again, new construction, and it's pretty amazing. I would have people compare it to the lack of reconstruction that the U.S. and NATO has done in places like Serbia, Libya, Afghanistan, Iraq. We don't do reconstruction.
Yeah.
And this is being done by Russia, and it is quite stunning, really.
Yeah, well, actually, the model for the U.S. also is on display in Ukraine, where you have, the BlackRock and some of the other funds scapping up the most valuable agricultural land, which, of course, is Ukraine's value on, in the open market is that was the breadbasket of Europe. This has been acquired on the cheap by these mega corporations in the West.
Yeah, by BlackRock and Vanguard. I think they now own about 30%
or more
of the land, and a lot of the war now is being fought to protect their interest, which is pretty sickening. And by the way, most of the good land and minerals, which Lindsey Graham was talking about, the trillions of dollars of minerals that the U.S. wants in Ukraine. Most of that is in the east.
That's correct.
Which is where the Donbass is, the Russian-speaking population that actually seceded from Ukraine in 2014 because they were unhappy with how they were being treated by the government in Kiev. Of course, that resulted in a civil war between the people of Donbass and the government in Ukraine, which resulted in the deaths of 14,000 people even before Russia intervened in 2022, and people need to keep that in mind. But in any case, it's that area that is the richest part of Ukraine, and that's the part that the U.S. is really keen on getting back.
Yeah, so Ukraine has maybe the second largest natural gas deposits in Europe, for example. That would be after Russia. The coal mining and all the other industrial activity also took place in the Donbass area in the eastern part of Ukraine.
Yes, I mean, the Donbass, people have to understand, first of all, it was part of Russia for a very long time, was then part of the Soviet Union, was really Donetsk in particular, which is in the Donbass, which I visited 3 times, including this last time. Donetsk was considered the heart of the Russian Revolution because it was the most industrial area of Russia when the revolution happened. It was a very pro-Soviet area as well, and therefore they always chafed under Ukrainian rule, particularly after the collapse of the Soviet Union, and particularly after 2014 when the ultra-right government, which the U.S. helped bring to power, turned against Russian-speaking population, outlawed Russian, began destroying old monuments, particularly from the Soviet era. And the people of Donetsk and neighboring Luhansk, there in the Donbass, both of which I visited, they wouldn't stand for it. And they declared independence, had a referendum to declare independence, which, as I said, resulted in this war and ultimately resulted in the Russian intervention in 2022 to honestly defend those people against the government in Kiev.
So the reconstruction has been going on. It started almost immediately after the securing of it by the Russians from the Ukrainian military. We're talking like in May, I think, of 2022. So they fought for 2 months, 3 months, a devastating battle. And then what was left, they began rebuilding on. Looking at the city and, in toto, what percentage of it would you say is redeveloped?
Well, it's hard for me to say, but it certainly seems like certainly a majority of it or more has been rebuilt. Again, judging just from the buildings that I saw driving throughout Mariupol, but also judging the other thing they've done is planted all, I don't know how many trees. You can just see so many young trees that were planted by Russia, lining the streets, in various parks. So they've done a lot of reforestation work too. I mean, the city's been utterly transformed, is the truth of it. And I put up a video on Twitter that shows this. And I have tons of footage like that. And in any case, yes, I mean, it's a radical transformation that you see. And life is returning there. You see people walking on the streets, in the parks, traffic on the streets. I mean, honestly, if you didn't know that there had been a war there 2 years ago, you might not know it now, just judging from what it looks like.
And life is pretty normal now? I mean, I know supposedly there's occasional shelling from the Ukrainians, but how does social life?
Yeah, not as much in Mariupol, no. That it's fairly normal life. In Donetsk, there is periodic shelling, including there was shelling while we were there, but it's sporadic. And again, life does seem normal. The cafes are full, and there's a nightlife there. And again, people seem to be going about their day. Same in Luhansk. I mean, life is largely returning to normal in those areas now controlled by Russia.
Dan, thank you very much for your time, and of course, relating what you're seeing to us.
Thank you, Don. It's my pleasure.
For KPFK, I'm Don DeBar.